Okay. I'm going to set it
So
off to you.
A remix.
Yeah, we were trying to remix it up. But Rebecca, you have the floor if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and take off.
Okay. Well, Amber, again, thank you so much for the invitation. And thank you everybody for being here. It's my first e-club meeting, so this is pretty cool. As I mentioned earlier, I accepted the invite back in October when I was on a project site visit with George, who invited me to tag along to project site visit in George Carnes in Uganda. So it's been quite a while since October, but I'm the regional grant officer for District 9211. I do also have District 2451 and all of the 22,000 districts, which are made up of Spain. 2451 is Egypt. So I oversee grants, global grants, specifically in the countries of Tanzania, Uganda, Spain, and Egypt. There are 4 regions that Rotary does global grant work in, and I work in the Europe and Africa region. So there are 7 other individuals that do the work that I do, have different countries that have different districts. And for, you know, since I'm talking to a Rotarian group, I assume that there's some familiarity around districts and clubs. And just a really quick overview of global grants. These are projects that are sponsored by an international sponsor and a host sponsor. The minimum budget for a global grant is $30,000, and the maximum budget could be up to $1 million. There are currently the district that I work in 9211 is pretty active. And so I'm kept pretty busy. There's some regional grant officers that have more districts, and I'm pretty lucky to have one of the lighter district loads. That doesn't mean less grant activity, but it's because these 4 districts have such, especially 9211, have such a high grant load. I get to be dedicated solely to them, actually, at one point. A little background about me: I've been working for Rotary for 5 years, and only in this capacity as regional grant officer for multiple districts as of maybe like 2 years ago. So prior to that, I only had 1 district, and it's been really a joy and a privilege to serve the incredible work that's being done by Rotarians in this district and in general around the world. As you know, we have 6 areas of focus, and of those areas of focus in my region in particular, the highest, the most global grants we have are in water and sanitation. And so might, you know, have a little bit of understanding why that is. I mostly wanted to come on, or agreed to come on, because I'm curious what questions Rotarians might have, or how we can best serve you as regional grant officers.
One of the questions I have is, and even though I've been a Rotarian for almost 5 years, I still don't understand. I mean, I understand the grant process, but not fully. So I don't know from beginning to end how it gets started and how it ends, and how if I write a check, like how the funds are applied and that nature.
Okay, so a little bit about the grant lifecycle. Again, you'll recall that I said you're required to have an international and a host sponsor. So the development of a project starts way before I actually see it on my desk. There's partnerships that are made through fellowship, through district conferences, through the International Assembly, as well as the convention. And you know, groups start working on projects and then they spend a substantial amount of time getting to know each other, seeing how they can best meet the needs. A grant can be sponsored either by an individual club, or it could be sponsored by the district. So larger projects are typically sponsored by the district. Smaller projects are sponsored by clubs. Typically, there are some clubs that do, pretty big projects. So once an idea is had, they start working on fundraising. So a lot of the fundraising efforts happen way before, again, I see a project. The mechanism for global grants is that we match district-derived funds 1-to-1. So districts often can, solicit funds from other individual districts to be part of a club, and then that DDF is tagged to a grant. Once those authorizations are in, there is a legal agreement that's required by each of the sponsors, and once that legal agreement is submitted, then the application goes into authorization or submitted status. So by that time, when I review it, I have 3 weeks to get to an application. And my responsibility primarily is to read through the terms and conditions and ensure that anything that's being presented meets our eligibility criteria. So we have 2 main documents that are the Bible of sorts for global grants, and that's the terms and conditions, global grants terms and conditions, and the area focus policy statement. So there isn't a whole lot left up to interpretation. I see an activity, I go to the parameters for the area focus selected, and I say this is eligible, this is not eligible. So after I get to the application, we'll send out a checklist for Rotarians to address anything that might be ineligible, maybe change the scope. Our role is really to coach Rotarians into eligible projects. Of course, there are projects that are ineligible, and usually those have to meet the very clear "we do not fund" list. So one big thing that we don't fund is construction. So automatically, when anything comes in that requires construction, that's an automatic red flag for ineligibility. And it would always go back. They're very concrete lines and statements of what we fund and what we don't fund. And depending on how quickly that information gets back to me and how many submitted applications I have at one time, we can get an application approved within 1 to 2 weeks after we have the necessary information from the checklist. And then the collection of funds starts. So the DDF is held by the foundation. That doesn't require collection, but we do have to receive all cash contributions that might be part of the application. And as quickly as those contributions come in, then once everything is accounted for, we're allowed to issue payment for that grant. Once a grant is approved and paid, or once a grant is paid, that's when the clock starts for a grant. So we require reporting every 12 months, and the date that you report is the date coincides with the date that a grant was paid. Typically, global grant projects take anywhere from 1 to 5 years to complete, depending on the scope of the project. Again, you have some smaller projects that, the $30,000 projects typically are done within 2 years. And then you have the $500,000 projects that take 5 years to complete.
So with the simple school grants, how did that go?
It did not go well. So the trustees took a decision in January to not support the findings of the pilot. It's not going to be an eligible category going forward.
Is that because of the construction aspect like you were speaking of, or just too much red tape and complications?
It's primarily all due to constructions. Because we work in over 200 countries and territories, for us it's just really hard to police construction in in that many different places in the world. And while Rotarians have an incredible heart, and we have 6 areas of focus, so that's an incredible portfolio. And construction is just not one of our strengths. And I think of the work that we do, they've set pretty specific circles around what we can. And just construction, we just don't have the capacity to do those type of projects. But I know it's an incredible sore spot for Rotarians.
Oh.
But there's not a lot of foundations that do. So I think that's an overall problem or concern in the nonprofit community worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Did anybody else have any questions? Because I've got a whole bunch in my mind. I'm just asking her.
I do.
Okay.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Anna.
Hi. Question for you. Have you had the opportunity to go visit some of these projects and see them in action? And if so, can you tell us about your favorite or one that stands out?
Yeah, so I have, and I mentioned in October, I went with past district governor George Carnes to a project in Uganda, a wash in schools project. And it's my favorite part of my job, to actually get to see some of the work that takes place that is incredible work. And when you think of, so I also have the privilege to be part of this, this international development community where we work with nonprofit organizations that are doing some of this really good work. And I get like chills to think about it, that we as volunteers do better work than some of these nonprofit organizations who do that for a living. And it's just really incredible to see partnerships, to see the level of just commitment from Rotarians and the amount of talent that there is through this organization, and people who are willing to give of those skills and talents. And in the case of 9211, there are just some incredible minds that are Rotarians there. That you're talking about anybody who's head of something is a Rotarian. In terms of public health, hospitals. What has been done in Uganda is incredible. The first cancer center was started by a Rotarian, through a Rotarian global grant. The first blood bank, the first pediatric oncology center in Tanzania was funded through Rotarian, contribution. So when I go there, it's really incredible to see what those projects are like. My favorite project is a level 3 project. So this is a grant for which has nearly a $500,000 budget. And I have a couple gray hairs to show for that global grant, but it was this dairy in Tanzania. The area is called Mwika. It's about an hour away from outside of Arusha. And Rotary started a dairy. And it was kind of a crazy feat to, and we're not talking about just teaching, giving individuals, cows and stimulating the economy in that way. We gave them cows, but then we also gave them a dairy. So we provided all the equipment so they could pasteurize the milk. We gave them funds so that they could create the capacity to run the dairy. And it's under community economic development. And it's just incredible to see that community and know that, kids can go to school, that household incomes have increased, that there's, you know, better nutrition for children. And again, that this hub, like as a result of this, has started a marketplace, you know, and you see a whole community transform, and really to see somebody's dream come true, because it was again a crazy dream and a pretty large project in terms of getting approval. But that's probably one of my most favorite jobs. And again, it comes back to the people. So the individual that sponsored the grant, or the primary host contact for that, just has an amazing story of, you know, coming out of this town, Moika, and just being a brilliant individual, was able to score scholarships that got him out of Tanzania. He came to study here in the United States, met his Rotarian wife here in the United States, you know, who happens to be Korean, like a whole incredible story behind that, you know. But he went on to work for the World Bank, and after he retired, he decided to go back to his community and build up his community. And so it's just the incredible project, but then also the incredible Rotarians that make up these projects.
What is your Rotary story?
My Rotary story. It's a complete accident of sorts. So some of you might remember matching grants. My background is actually in youth development and community development. So I've worked on the other end primarily of managing funds and managing grants, the Head Start grant, Teen Reach grant, through after school programs. And during the closeout of the matching grants, I applied for a job on Craigslist, and it was to help close out a program, and a global study exchange program. And at that time, they didn't even mention what organization it was, but that organization turned out to be Rotary. And I worked as a temp actually for 2 years at Rotary, closing out matching grants and group study exchange. And as a result of my time there, I discovered Rotary. One of the things that is part of my story is that I live in Evanston, where the international headquarters. And I can tell you that a lot of people in our community don't know what Rotary is, what they do. I didn't know. And we, I think for previous to, like, in matching grants time, I think Rotarians have a hard time bragging about themselves and telling their story. And I think it's really nice to have these clubs and, you know, like close connections. But I think outside of Rotary clubs, Rotarians could do a better job of telling their story to non-Rotarians. So that's something that we're working to change, that I always love sharing stories of the work that Rotary does. And I try to push our organization to do a little bit more of that locally.
I am the incoming public image chair for our district. And one of the things I want to do is I've told everybody in all my presentations, it's like everyone in this room, or whenever we're on Zoom calls, I'm like, you have a story, but how are we going to know it if you don't tell it? So we have an informer that comes out every month, and then I'm hoping to highlight Rotarians on our Facebook page, because I think everybody has a great story. Like, I don't even know Paul Economy's story, and he's one of my members. So I'm volunteering you, Paul. You're going to be my first. Oh, you're muted. Hold on. Unmute yourself.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Okay, I'm on board, Amber. I will be there. It's a boring one, but it's a Rotarian story.
It's not a boring one. Everybody has a great story. I mean, nobody can top Tim's, I'm pretty sure, because he was inducted on a Thursday and then left for Africa on a Friday with Walter Hughes. So he's probably got the best story, but I think that everybody has a story, and I agree with you, Rebecca. I think it needs to be told more, and it's not that we're bragging, but there's so much that Rotary does that nobody knows about.
Right. Google has this training. It's called Remarkable. I Am Remarkable, and it's to try to get women to be more comfortable around telling their story and what makes them remarkable. And one of the things that they say is that if it's the truth, then it's not bragging. So yes, Rotary is changing lives around the world. Rotary is changing communities and just doing such incredible work, and that is the truth. So I think I would encourage you to share more of that truth, and I think that the Rotary is going to play a very special role in COVID-19 response. I'm already seeing that in the part of the world that I work in, and I'm seeing it here. You know, I'm seeing it here in the United States. I think this is the first time that we've ever had to experience something of this nature, or to maybe perhaps experience a little bit of what other parts of the world experience in terms of food scarcity and community economic development really being in a total crisis, and will be for the next couple of years. And I think Rotary will play a really important role for that.
I agree, very much so.
I agree with that. I mean, is there any person that is out there speaking on behalf of Rotary, how they are going to be strategizing to support the COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, well, they have. Just this past weekend, they had a Facebook Live on Saturday I think it was the current president and John Schmarge was on there, just trying to raise funds for COVID relief. So we have a disaster relief fund that is a fund that can be replenished, but we need people to give into that. And districts are able to receive a one-time up to $25,000 disaster relief grant for COVID-19 response. So the trustees gave additional money to that fund, and again, we're asking Rotarians to help with that fund. But also too, when you think about global grants, the global grant activity is not going to stop. And how do we design global grants that are going to require us to look at COVID-19 no matter where you work or where you're doing the work, because this is something that's impacted the entire world.
That's awesome. It would be great if we can get a name, and maybe Amber even have them as a speaker for us, if that's possible.
Yeah, there isn't one set person that's handling disaster response, but I could see if somebody in our communications department could provide a contact for how best to support the efforts going forward.
Yeah, I would love that.
Because we could probably, I mean, we may be able to coordinate some type of drive even in our district.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of districts.
Clubs to come or do something fun like that.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
There's just an incredible amount of work and outpouring that's being done by individual clubs, individual districts. The district in Uganda, who usually doesn't, Uganda, Tanzania, who usually doesn't do a district grant. So there's global grants and then there's district grants. And they hadn't applied for one in 3 years. They primarily focused on global grants. They applied for their first district grant in 3 years, and the entire district grant went to COVID-19 response. The 3 districts in Spain partnered up with a district in Taiwan, and the same for them. They created a global grant of nearly $150,000 for COVID response in Spain. So, again, it's these incredible people, Rotarians that are responding.
Great. Love that. I like your story too. Thank you for sharing it.
Thanks for listening.
See, more people need to share their story. Anna, did you
Yeah.
have any more questions? You're muted. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we go. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Anna and Bethany have both, we have traveled together to Ghana on separate trips, but we've traveled together. It would be nice. It would be great if I could have both of them in the same place at the same time.
Okay. What were you doing there?
We were on, I guess it's a donor trip with Walter Hughes. We went for the school dedications, a couple of we wanted to show Rotarians who haven't seen before the microflush toilets and the process, and boreholes. What else did we see, Bethany or Anna? Hospitals? We went to.
We credit
You what?
microcredit loans.
Oh yeah, microcredit loans. So
Okay.
Did you hear me?
Yep, I got you now. Yep. So we got to see businesses that use microcredit loans. Like one lady it's called the Mother Love Foundation, and she asked her, I think it's in Kumasi or Obuasi, asked for her local Rotary group. She went and spoke to them, and her main initiative is to get young females that are in the sex trafficking district, and she brings them in and teaches them a trade like sewing and bead making. And so she's pretty much rescuing them, giving them a safe place to stay, teaching them the trade so they can make money and go out on their own and get away from the sex trade business. And this last trip that I went on with Bethany, we had two.
Oh wow, so you've been multiple times.
I've been 3
Okay.
or 4 times. 3. Yes, 3. And then I've been to South Africa as well. But Bethany and I were on the trip where we dedicated 2 schools, that small school grants. It was in Karakrum and, oh man, Adawasi in Ghana. So she got to experience that, and I don't remember what else we did. They kind of run together.
Well, we checked out the Hilltop. We went to go make sure that they had the site ready for Hilltop.
Yes, and so Hilltop's I think it's the last small school grant that Rotary is doing, which has been approved, and so it's in the final process now. I'm pretty sure. I don't understand. Like I'll get emails and like where they are and all the steps, and I'm like oblivious because it's just too much.
Yeah, but I mean, how cool is that? You know, those 4 experiences that you've had. If it wasn't for Rotary, you know, would you have done that? And
No.
I think for anybody that has seen, you know, what those projects look like in person, it changes you. It's a different thing seeing it on TV and you know, hearing about it or reading about it. But when you go and you see the human connection, and you also see the you know, the local Rotarians and what their commitment is to Rotary, especially in Ghana and, you know, the other countries on the continent of Africa, it's pretty cool. And Rotary is very highly respected in Africa, and just the amount of work that's being done, it's just it blows me away.
Yeah, me too. And I love to read other stories and just realize, like, it's not just one place we're doing it. In other countries, there's so many things, you know, and I love to hear everybody's stories. I'm a big fan of Rotary stories, and how trips have touched people, or how a certain grant, you know, even like just a district grant or within your club has really, you know, just really meant something to somebody. And I think that's why I love Rotary so much is, and plus it's a known brand. Like if I always try to wear some type of Rotary wearable when we travel, and you will not believe other Rotarians I meet in the airport.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, what club are you with? And then you start a conversation, and it's pretty wild.
Yeah. I mean, Rotary connects the world, right? Not to be cheesy, but it does.
It really does. It really does.
Yeah.
Well, does
I don't know if anybody, well, I'm assuming you all have been to a convention, but to be at a convention is there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it, and it's, you know, the 9211 put out this book, the irrational people, right? The people that pay to volunteer. But I think that there's a reward in that incredible connections that are made, incredible relationships are, you know, flourish and are maintained.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you talk about, you know, my Rotary Story, all the staff fight over during International Assembly when the incoming district governors have to work on their pitch and my Rotary Story. That's for staff. That's like all of our favorites. Everybody wants to have that assignment, to be in that room, to hear these incredible stories of how, you know, what people's Rotary stories are.
Oh my gosh, how can I get that job? I want that job.
Yeah, about sign up for Sergeant at Arms.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know that we've been to two conventions. Is that right, Tim? I don't remember. My husband's right over there. And I don't know how many Anna's been to, but Bethany, Paul, have you been to one? An international convention? Bethany hasn't either.
No, I was trying to get down to Atlanta. I just didn't get there.
It's really incredible.
They're incredible.
Yeah. When we were in Atlanta,
the speakers, the workshops, the fun. Like I've never seen people have so much fun.
And you meet people from all the countries. And it's one of the things I told when we were in Atlanta, I was telling my brother, I was like, I have people beside me who are Muslim. I have people behind me who are Islam. I have people beside me that are Christian, and people in front of me who are Jewish. And I was like, and everybody's having a great time.
Yeah.
Not
a great time.
a really great time.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're known for having a good time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's awesome. What an incredible way to celebrate life.
That's true. Very true. Did anybody else have any questions or comments for Rebecca? No? Thank you so much. I didn't realize it was October when I invited you. I try to schedule everything out for a year just so
it's pretty impressive. Yeah, you got a good running machine.
Right now I'm up till, I think right now I have until January. I have all spots filled until January, but it's not good enough for me. I need to get the rest of the spots filled.
Wow.
And really good speakers.
I'll work on maybe getting you some more people.
I'll do it. I love it. And I loved having you. And thank you so much for your commitment and the work that you do. And if you need anything, we're here for you.
Okay. Well, likewise, our job is to ensure that you make access to your foundation, which is, I think, one of the best foundations in the world. There's none like it. Mm-hmm. And so it's an incredible privilege for me to work to support the incredible work of Rotarians. And so I thank you for being part of Rotary and for your engagement. And if you ever have a global grant question, feel free to email me or call me. I don't know if you want me to put the I can put my email in the chat.
Okay.
And for right now, since we're working from home, my phone is being forwarded to my email. So there, I won't give you, well, I'll give it to you for when we're back in the office. If you happen to call me, it'll just be forwarded to my email. But again, we're here to help. If you have a project concept and before you get emotionally attached to it and want to pass it by me, feel free to email me or give me a call once we're back in the office. But there's an incredible team in our grants department that's here to support the work that you do.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a great
you.
evening.
Thank you. You too. I'm gonna get some dinner.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's late.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.